Greetings, fellow humans. I'm MartianBuu, and today we got a trailer for the upcoming Pokemon Pocket Set Mythical Island. In that trailer, they revealed a bunch of the upcoming cards, so we have a little bit of a preview of what we can expect in a few days when the content releases. So I'm going to go through all of those cards and just tell you what I think of them. This site is Pokemon-Zone.com that I'm using to showcase the cards. They have all of this news as well as other nice content for Pokemon Pocket. So if you're interested in more stuff like that, you can go check them out. So here are the new cards. We have Mew EX here. So the set seems to revolve around Mew EX. It's supposed to be the big exciting Pokemon thematically, I suppose. And it shows the card is very good, I think. So 130 HP EX, that's actually a surprising number for a Mew coming from paper Pokemon. Mew, like the two prize Mews, tend to have lower HP than other two prize Pokemon with similar effects. So it's kind of funny to see it with the premium number. But anyways, 130 HP basic, pretty good. It has a 1 energy attack, which is pretty good. So you look at Articuno and it's 1 water, 1 colorless basic attack, and that feels slow. Whereas with this, you can start chipping away right away. Then its main attack, the reason that you would play it, is genome hacking. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. This is a much better version of the Ditto that we have currently. So the Ditto we have right now gets to copy one of the opponent's attacks, but it needs the specific energies in order to be able to use it. This card does not have that stipulation, so it's actually super good. You can think about knocking out opposing Mewtwo EX, you can knock out an opposing Charizard EX, and it's fine because this is not going to ask you to be running those energies in your deck. And I would say this is a really cool card for the game generally, because you could theoretically splash it in anything because it only requires colorless energy. But outside of Psychic, you have to power this up manually one by one. So it's really only going to be a tool for Mewtwo EX Gardevoir, which is already a strong deck. So on the one hand, my first impulse was, why are we supporting this deck more when it's already so good? But on the other hand, I think it's just really cool that we have an established archetype that gets an update with a new expansion. So I'm going to be excited to play this. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting to go first in the mirror. So before, when you would go first in the mirror, you have your active Mewtwo EX and your benched Ralts. And you don't really get to take advantage of the benefit of going first, which is getting to evolve first, because you pass on the first turn, evolve to Kirlia, attach to Mewtwo on the second turn, and then on the third turn, you evolve to Gardevoir, attach to Mewtwo from hand, or from the energy zone, and then attach from Gardevoir, and you've only got 3 energies on. That's not enough to knock out an opposing Mewtwo EX before, but if you're powering up a Mew, and your opponent has their Mewtwo EX out, you can actually hit them, because this is only 3 energy. That's the amount of energy you would have in that situation. So I think it'll be interesting. It's gonna really shore up its weakness to Charizard, because like instead of just being SOL when your opponent gets up their Charizard in time and your Mewtwo can't knock it out in one hit, now the Mew EX can just copy the Charizard's attack and knock it out. So I feel like it's gonna be a pretty good positive update for that deck. Then we have Aerodactyl EX, which I think is going to be a little bit more exciting because it's something that goes into a deck that wasn't already performing. What the partner for Aerodactyl is, I don't know, but it's a fighting Pokemon with an incredibly reasonable attack and also a very useful ability. So it's got 140 HP, which on a stage 1 is pretty good. 1 retreat cost, also good. Weak to lightning, unfortunate. I don't know why they keep sticking these things with a lightning weakness. But anyways, its ability is your opponent's active Pokemon, or your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. So it's like the original Aerodactyl from paper that prevented all evolution from happening, but it only stops your opponent's active Pokemon. And I think that's really nice, A, because this works from the bench, and if it stopped all evolving completely, it would be really obnoxious. But making them not able to evolve the active Pokemon in particular means that if the Pokemon, they're going to have to be doing some retreating in order to play around this. So it can put your opponent in a situation, for example, if they had like a Charmeleon with 3 energy on it active, they don't actually get to evolve that right now. They have to first retreat it, evolve it, and then attack with it later. So I think it's going to allow you to put your opponent in some really awkward positions, especially when coupled with like Sabrina and stuff like that. The attack is also very good. So 2 for 80 is phenomenal. That's better than Marowak. Marowak is 2 for 0, which is totally unfortunate, but the average that it's supposed to deal, 2 for 80, is really good, right? So 2 for 80 one-shots everything outside of stage 2 evolution EXs. So it's pretty good. It's going to be good as an attacker. I think I'll probably, you know, depending on what the rest of the set looks like, I'll probably use this as my Brock's Onyx counterpart and see how that goes. So we'll always start with the Onyx, and then, you know, we can set up our Aerodactyl when we have time. There are some Pokemon that were mentioned apparently that we don't actually have a visual on, so that's like Pidgeot EX and Celebi EX here. Who knows what they do? We'll find out. Pidgeot, the non-EX one, is already pretty good. So if we had a Pidgeot EX that was a good attacker, you know, I could see running 2 Pidgeot EX and just one of the Pidgeot with the Sabrina ability to, you know, flex, use that when it makes sense to. But, you know, it'll depend on it being good. We have this Execute here. So same HP as the current Execute. I went and checked. The current Execute is 1 Grass for 20, which is whatever. But this has a very good attack. So for 1 Colorless, take a Grass energy from the energy zone and attach it to this Pokemon. And I would say that's a really good attack, except that our current Exeggutor all only require 1 energy. So you're already powered up and ready to go if you just have attached this energy. So it's obviously there's going to be an Exeggutor in this set, right? Like with this attack and there being an Execute, we have to assume that an Exeggutor is coming too. So whatever that, like if we finally get an Explosion attack on an Exeggutor, that'll be kind of cool with the Growth Spurt. The only thing, like if they just added this Execute with no Exeggutor, the only use I can think of is this is a colorless energy requirement. So what you can do is you can run this Execute and Exeggutor in a deck that doesn't have any grass energy in it, and use this attack to power up your Exeggutor. So like say you were running it with Wheezing, for example, you could send this up, attach your dark energy to it, use Growth Spurt, it gets a grass, and now it can still evolve into Exeggutor and an attack. I think that's a little silly, obviously, because like if you're in a position to where Exeggutor is not, or Execute isn't going to survive after using this attack, then you can never attack with your Exeggutor. But like that's the only way that this would be useful, I think. Then we have Snivy. So Snivy, this Pokemon basically just means we're going to get the evolution line in the set. It is like the Bulbasaur, so 1 Grass, 1 Colorless for 40, 70 HP. 70 HP is very good. 1 Retreat cost is very good. 2 for 40 on a basic that's meant to evolve is quite bad. So you're never going to be attacking with this thing with 2 energy, right? Like if you're evolving on curve, you put it down, you attach your energy, you can't attack, and then you evolve it, and now you don't have 2 for 40 anymore. So I'd have much rather seen like 1 for 20 after having experience with Bulbasaur, but you know, it's whatever. You're not supposed to attack the basics necessarily anyway, right? Then we have Morlul, another kind of just basic, 60 HP, 1 for 20. We'll see how the evolutions are. Delmise, which is a carbon copy of non-EX Lapras, right? But grass. So same HP, same retreat cost. If this Pokemon has at least 3 extra grass energy attached to it, this attack does 70 more damage. So it's 4 for 90 or 1 for 20, just like the Lapras we already have. The big difference between this and the Lapras is Delmise does not have Misty to power it up, right? So instead of it being a tanky Pokemon that you can sometimes power up, it's a tanky Pokemon that you will never power up. And obviously you're supposed to play this with Lilligant. Lilligant is a fragile Pokemon that requires 2 energy to start powering things up, so I don't like it personally, but I guess you could do that. Magmar, I was hoping for another Magmar, and like for a lot of these I'm surprised we're getting them so soon, but this one has 80 HP, 2 retreat cost, which is unfortunate, but Fire Blast 2 for 80. The reason that I wanted a Magmar is because we have Blaine, and Blaine interacts with Pokemon named Magmar. So if we had a really good Magmar, it'd be really nice to be able to have a better Blaine deck. This, not so much. So 2 for 80 is good, but you have to discard both fire, right? So you use this attack and then it's never attacking again, which, you know, with 80 HP could be true anyway. But in order to power up fire Pokemon right now, you need a Moltres active using its attack. So maybe it's nice to have multiple Ninetales and Magmar on the bench to get them all powered up so that they can chain their attacks. But then if the Moltres goes down, you know, you can only lose one of these things before you've lost the game. So I don't know. I don't really see this being anything without like some kind of Firestarter Blaziken. So the Firestarter Blaziken in paper, once per turn you could attach a fire energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So if you had something like that, a stage 2 that lets you, I guess like a Fire Gardevoir rather, then it would make a lot more sense to use this with Blaine, but you know, we don't have that as far as I know. Then we have Larvesta, so 80 HP, 2 for 30, 2 retreat cost. This seems awful, but you know, it's meant to evolve, so we'll have to see what the Volcarona is. And then we have this Vaporeon, which I think is very interesting. I initially glossed over it because of how I'm used to these effects in paper, but in, you know, if we look at Lieutenant Surge, it could be pretty cool. So anyways, getting ahead of myself. The Vaporeon has 120 HP for stage 1, which is pretty good. As often as you like during your turn, you may move a water energy from one of your benched water Pokemon to your active water Pokemon. So how this gets used in like the TCG is something like the Firestarter Blaziken for water, right? You would put the water onto your bench Pokemon and then use Washout to move it up to the active. And so it's just a way to like power up your active Pokemon with something that's meant to power up a bench Pokemon. But it also lets you do things like retreat a damaged Pokemon, move the energy up, and then use something that restores all damage from a Pokemon but discards all its energy. So without the downside, that's how it gets used in paper. So kind of like that, but not really. We already see Lieutenant Surge being used in the Pikachu decks. So you attack with your Pikachu EX once or twice, and then you retreat it with X speed, send up the Raichu, Lieutenant Surge those energy onto your active, and do 140 damage. This could be used very similarly in the Misty's Water decks. So you're attacking with your Starmie, it deals its attack once or twice, and then it's going to get knocked out, so you retreat it, then use Washouts, like you retreat it for like an Articuno or something, then you use Washout to move the energy from the Starmie onto your active Articuno, leaving the Starmie safe on the bench to not give up any points, and you can then swing, you know, with Articuno to your heart's content or whatever. I think this is going to be really good. I think this is gonna like very positively change how water decks get played. If you can get a Vaporeon out, you're suddenly very flexible with all of your energies, right? You can chain attackers so that they don't get knocked out in one hit, depending on what you're up against. Obviously, if you're up against a Mewtwo or a Charizard, you're getting KO'd from full anyway, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, I do think this will be interesting. So we're going to get a Pikachu, I guess, that has the Circle Circuit. So it's a basic Pikachu. It'll do 10 damage for each lightning Pokemon on your bench. So it's 1 for 30 if you're all powered up. So I think this is a strict improvement over the current one, right? The current one is just 1 lightning for 20. So this is like, you're probably not going to be attacking with that Pikachu anyway. And this at least has some upside of maybe doing a little bit more damage. So that'll probably be good. This D-Den, I'm not sure about. So, you know what? This actually might be good. Okay, so this is another one that I kind of wrote off, but it might be like a strict improvement over, you know, what our current lightning basic options are in the Pikachu EX deck. So for 60 HP, it's kind of low, but it has 1 lightning for 10, flip a coin if head's paralyzed. And we're already running the Pincurchin a lot of the time just because we need that out for multiple turns of paralysis. But this requires half the energy investment, and you can use it early to slow your opponent down instead of only having it as a late game Hail Mary like we do with Pincurchin. So this actually might be the nuts. Huh. I think I wrote this off too quick. This might actually just slot right into Pikachu EX decks. Only because the current lightning Pokemon aren't very valuable, right? Like with the bar to make it the cut to replace the current lightning Pokemon that go with Pikachu EX is pretty low. So considering that, you know, this could be a strict upgrade over what we're already using. Then we have Marshadow. So this is a fighting Marshadow. It has 80 HP, which is whatever. It has fighting and a colorless for 40. And if one of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does 60 more damage. So 2 for 100. Fighting is unfortunate, right? Like fighting doesn't have good ways to get energy onto their Pokemon. So you have to attach both of these energies. I don't know what you'd run that with. Maybe you run that with the Aerodactyl, because like if all of your Pokemon require only one fighting and a colorless, or like just a couple energy to attack, and then you know they survive a couple turns, you know you have the time to power everything up, and 100 damage for 2 is pretty good. So yeah, like an Aerodactyl could hit a Charizard for 80, get knocked out, and then you come up with your Marshadow and revenge it for 100. That's enough to knock it out if they don't potion. So I could see it. I'm not like super excited about it. It's going to be a little bit awkward, but I could see it being good. Then we have Tauros, which is 100 HP, 2 retreat cost, colorless Pokemon. For 3 energy, it's going to do 40, and if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon EX, it does 80 more, so it's 3 for 120. That's not bad. With a Giovanni that KOs things in one hit. I wonder if you could run this with Weezing. So Weezing wants to have high energy count partners because it only requires 1 energy to get going, and it's kind of beefy, so it gives you the time to power up something else. This could be good. I've been running the Weezing with the Wigglytuff. But yeah, the problem with this is nothing powers up colorless Pokemon yet, right? So you have to attach all 3 of these energies yourself. But 120 damage to an EX is a lot. So, you know, again, using Charizard as an example, you hit it with the Weezing, it's poison, it takes 30. 50 back to your turn, 120 plus the poison. Yeah, it's knockout. So, I mean, this could be a really good Weezing partner. I was going to talk about how terrible this is. But, you know, maybe, like, I think in my head also when I first read this, I processed this as 100 damage, but this is 120, which is a Giovanni away from knocking out a lot of relevant stuff. And it already knocks out Pikachu EX in one hit. So, it's not bad. It might actually be good. I don't know. Hard to say. All right. Well, let's see if I flip on this one. So blue, it's a new supporter. You know, we really need more supporters and items in this game where we're so like strapped for stuff to fill our deck with. So during your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 10 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. So that's like a reverse Giovanni. And that's terrible because right now, you know, a lot of decks are running Giovanni just because they have the space to run it. So like to negate this, they just have to play their own Giovanni. I was thinking about it in like Mewtwo mirrors again. So like you send up if your Mewtwo is at full HP, you can play blue, and then your opponent will only be dealing 140 damage to the Mewtwo, so it gets to survive the mirror. But they're running Giovanni anyway for other reasons, so it just gives value to Giovanni in that matchup that it didn't have before. So like it is a little bit different than a potion, because potion requires, like, for potion to change breakpoints, it requires you to take a hit, reduce a little bit of that damage, and then, you know, then it changes it. Whereas this will prevent something like the Mewtwo situation where the Pokemon was going to knock it out from full, and potion doesn't help you with that. But like only 10 damage is not worth a supporter, right? So I bring up potion because this is half the value of a potion, and it's your supporter. So like potion mitigates 2, this mitigates 1. So I don't know. I feel like if this was -20 or -30, it has like potential to be a really interesting card, but it's so inflexible given that Giovanni is so popular everywhere. Like you're not really going to be able to reliably change breakpoints with this. All right, on to a good supporter. So I first read this and rolled my eyes, but then I thought about it a little bit more, and I actually think it's pretty good. So it's a supporter. During this turn, the retreat cost of your active Pokemon is 2 less. So like they're very obviously interested in keeping it so that Pokemon with high retreat cost, that retreat cost matters. In the paper card game, there are all these cards like Switch that let you just take your active Pokemon and move it to the bench without retreating. So if a Pokemon has high retreat cost, it's a little bit less flexible, but you're gonna be able to move it out of the active spot with a variety of means. And that's not the case in Pocket so far. Everything that is meant to enable you to switch, all it does is reduce the retreat cost of the Pokemon. So it's kind of cool because it means that like a Pokemon with a high retreat cost, you know, that high retreat cost is going to matter. I think it's a little less cool because Pokemon don't seem to be balanced in accordance with their retreat costs. Like, just because a Pokemon has high retreat cost doesn't mean that Pokemon is going to be better. There are a lot of like really terrible Pokemon that also have a terrible retreat cost. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. So anyways, all that is to say, I almost scoffed at this at first, but it does give you good access to retreating things that I had written off. So like Drowsy and Geodude are some examples of basic Pokemon that have 2 retreat cost, and I need them to be on the bench. So if I start with them active, they're just stuck there. So if we're running a Hypno deck, or if we're running a Golem deck, now we can start with those Pokemon and just play Leaf, and we get to retreat. It also stacks with X speed, right? So if you're running X speeds and Leafs, so now you actually have some ability to retreat a 3 or 4 cost retreat Pokemon. So I think it's going to be interesting, and especially considering we still have all those extra bench or deck slots in our decks right now. Like, we're still like struggling to fill our decks with 20 good cards. I think that there's definitely going to be some room for decks that have Pokemon with high retreat costs to include Leaf and feel pretty good about it. And that's all the ones that we know of, like as far as like we know what they do. There's apparently been a Leotard. Oh, there is an Exeggutor. So there's a Leopard, Exeggutor, Magikarp, Gyarados, Volcarona, Mankey Superior, Salandite, Rapidash, Stonejourner, and Behemoth that, you know, we've caught a glimpse of in the trailer, but we don't know what they do. But yeah, so far actually, especially after having gone through these each one by one, I was like only kind of excited mostly about Mew and Aerodactyl, but like going through them, like that Tauros actually looks kind of interesting. So I'm hoping to have a lot of fun with this set comes out, and this is only a small slice of it, right? Like there's a ton of other stuff we get to work with once it actually goes live. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Marshy content, and thank you so much for watching.